Well, a very good afternoon to you and welcome to the Farm Kenya show. My name is Donkip Kimboy. Now, there is a problem in this country. Around 3.5 million Kenyans are in need of food assistance. When we talk about humanitarian food assistance, because there's been a drought. End of last year, they short trains, October, November. They didn't come as expected. And that totally destabilized our food ecosystem. This is a growing concern. Right now you're seeing, it's March, the rains are coming back, but still, this issue of Kenyans starving because of lack of food in the 21st century, to be specific, 2026, is a huge problem. Is there a solution? That's the big question that we've always discussed in many forums, including this show. How can we achieve and attain food security where each and every single human being is given that inalienable right of access to food, which is critical to our survival? That will be part of our discussion today, this issue of drought, how it's impacted our agricultural systems, and some of the solutions that we think will solve this problem. In studio, we have Julius Nyabicha, who's an agricultural expert. You've worked in many spaces, policy, not only in Africa, in Kenya specifically, but across the world. Julius, before even we delve into the discussion, which we shall be coming into later on, I mean, it's 2026 and we still have Kenyans starving. This is a huge concern. What do you think about this?
Yeah, definitely it is an embarrassment that we are starving in 2026. I've said it before that there is no dignity when you import food. You should be able to produce your own food. Kenya is a country that is relatively well endowed when it comes to soils, when it comes to rainfall. Mm-hmm. But still we do not produce enough. Any country that is dependent on rainfall for agricultural purposes, for food production, is a country that we can term as backward. Because what happens in the world is that challenges will always be there. But solutions for these challenges must be sought. And how do you seek for solutions for the challenges that we face? You do so through technology. How do you adapt and how do you adopt the various technologies to make sure that you produce enough? And this is not just in agriculture, it's everywhere. Anytime we have a challenge in terms of diseases in the health sector,
yes,
our researchers get down to work, they produce what is necessary to make sure that we are kept alive.
Okay.
A few years ago, we had the COVID-19 pandemic. In a record time, there was a vaccine. So why can't we do the same in agriculture? The problem that we have always had is that we do not speak with one voice. We have not given technology a chance. We have not given technology an opportunity. We haven't given our researchers an opportunity to guide us on what we need to do in terms of technology for purposes of food production.
Okay.
Not just for food production, but agricultural production.
Definitely.
So that's where we are, and that's what really puts us where we are today. Definitely. That's what is putting us in the embarrassment that we find ourselves in.
Which is quite unfortunate, and we look at the realities, the ramifications of this drought, and being rain dependent when it comes to agriculture, the production level, and what we need to do different. But at this particular moment, let's take a look at Agri-News. All right, we start off on matters tea, and specifically, have you heard of high-end tea? To be specific, chamomile farming is emerging as a promising high-value crop. Guess where? in Meru County, offering farmers a low-cost alternative with strong income potential. Now, with dried chamomile flowers retailing between 800 and 1,000 shillings per kilogram and yields reaching up to 400 kilograms per acre, the crop is attracting growing interest among small-scale farmers. According to farmers, the flower is positioned as a viable diversification option in Kenya's evolving agribusiness landscape.
Huu mmea ni mmea ambao ni tofauti na mimea mingine na unaweza kustahimili katika kila hali na katika kila eneo. Hata eneo za baridi pia unafanya vizuri, lakini sana sana ni eneo za joto ambao inafanya vizuri zaidi.
Na naona hapa walimi shamba kubwa akuwa tobaneka ama less than akuwa tobaneka, tunaambiwa inatoa about 40,000, 35,000. Nikaona hii hata hawa vijana wamemaliza shule wanaweza kufanya hii kazi na iwasaidie.
Huyu atulimi na fertilizer ni organically, tunailima organically, mbolea tu ukiweka hivyo haina shinda, inakuwa mzuri kabisa na unachuna mawa mingi sana.
Let's talk matters. NSSF and the National Social Security Fund has declared a 17% return for its contributors for the financial year 2024-2025, and this is up from 11% in the last financial year, 2023 to 2024. Despite a tough economic environment, NSSF recorded one of its strongest performances to date. And members' actually contribution rose from the previous year by 35% to 84 billion shillings.
Operating costs were maintained below the statutory threshold of 1.5% for the first time in the fund's history. This milestone, achieved 2 years ahead of schedule, reflects prudent financial management and a growing contributions base, ensuring that a greater proportion of every shilling benefits members. Your NSSF savings are no longer viewed as another tax. It is building your tomorrow and contributing to Kenya's economic growth.
We are doing an average of 9 days now. I mean, how much time do we take to pay your benefits? That's what you call turnaround time. On average now, we are doing 9 days. We are targeting by the end of this year to do an average, or rather to reduce processing time to 1 day, 24 hours, through digitization. Of course, over the years, we have collected over 170 billion in contributions.
And in the spirit of modernization and including technology in agriculture, coastal farmers are set to benefit from improved access to modern agricultural machinery following a new agriculture showroom in Mombasa. Actually, according to the Inchcap Managing Director, Marion Mwangi, wider access to mechanized farming equipment could increase crop yields and reduce production costs. The Kibarani-based facility will provide after-sales support.
Especially around haulage at the port. This being a port city, we have banking partners that will ensure that those who are buying our machinery can get financial support. So there are partnerships that are linked to what the need is.
We are designing and manufacturing full range of tractors and harvesting equipment suitable for Kenyan farmers with small farm, large farms, all type of crops. And the second reason is that we rely on a strong local partner, Inchcap, to be the one to have the proximity to the customer, with two very important aspects out of it. One is to provide the after sales to the customer, and the second reason is also to help the farmer in finding financing with the banks and different institutions.
With the coming of the special economic zone, there comes several advantages. The tax the tax incentives and efficiency that are related to mobility and logistics, and therefore we are setting up one-stop shop for everything.
Now, on to our farm guide segment. It touches on what we're discussing about today, this issue of drought. In our weekly farm guide segment, a severe drought is tightening its grip on eastern Kenya, leaving millions facing acute food shortages as livestock die and water sources dry up. With crops failing and pasture depleted, vulnerable communities are in urgent need of relief. This story is in partnership with Viori.
Due to the drought, we walk for over 5 kilometers where we have to dig for these tubers, often hidden under hard and heavy rocks. If we don't do so, the remaining livestock will all die. The tubers have a lot of moisture, and that's what is sustaining the goats and sheep. Before the drought, we could get foods like beans and vegetables. Today, those are very hard to get, and we are forced to burn charcoal so as to get money to buy food.
Kwa sababu hali ya anga, hali ya jilali imepamba moto sana, hali ya anga imebana watu sana, ndio sababu ndugu yetu Ebisa alifikiria watu wetu wa raia wale ambao wakazi wa Sagante Jaldesa wana shida ya ni chakula, maji na shida nyingine ambao kwamba ni vizuri alifikiria atafute chakula hii ili watu wetu wafaidike.
I used to have hundreds of goats and sheep. Today, only 20 are remaining. What you see here is a collection from numerous households. If the drought persists, we are going to lose everything. We have no other source of income. A Gabra without livestock is nothing. The few that remain fetch very little in the market.
The drought means we cannot get food as we used to. We have to ration the little we have, since in this area we haven't received any aid.
Well, sad picture right there. And this is happening within the borders of this country. And that actually sets the foundation of our discussion today, this issue of drought. And it's today we have Julius Nyabicha, who's an agricultural expert. Julius, I mean, life has really changed when we look at external factors. Climate change is coming in strongly, population growth, All these factors are sort of converging to a point where the country, and especially most vulnerable, become food insecure. Just paint for us the picture of how dire the situation is, as we've just seen.
No, the situation is not very good, and it will get worse if we do not take drastic measures. We say necessity is the mother of invention. I have seen there that goats are being fed with the tubers. If there was enough grass, the goats wouldn't be fed with the tubers because it has necessitated that farmer to do so. I think as Kenyans, we need to evaluate ourselves. We cannot produce in 2026 using the methods that we used to use in production 20, 40 years ago. It cannot work. Because our population has increased, we have got much more mouths to feed. Our eating habits has also changed. A lot of us who stay in urban areas are consuming much more, especially much more animal products, which require much more resources to produce. And therefore, when you want to produce, you look at a number of aspects. You look at the fertilizer, how healthy is the soil. You look at the availability of water. If you do not have water for irrigation, then you're looking at rainfall. How much rainfall do you have, and can that rainfall sustain a crop from planting to harvesting? You look at the type of technology you're using in terms of machinery, because labor has also become quite limiting and very expensive. You look at the infestation of pests, and therefore you have to look at pesticides. You've got to look at diseases, and you've got to know how to control those diseases. But most important, you must start from the seed itself. What type of seed do you want to use? I have heard a lot of people talk about seed, and the seed is now becoming quite controversial. Every time you mention seed, people are talking about agri-biotechnology, people are talking about GMOs. But you see, what we need to think about is how can you plant a seed that can be sustained with limited rainfall from planting to harvesting. And that is the reason why researchers, breeders, plant breeders in this country are working overtime to ensure that the seed that they give to farmers, to Kenyan farmers, is a seed that can be able to withstand drought, and therefore it has to be a water efficient seed. It is a seed that can be able to withstand pests such as insects. The main culprit we have, especially in maize production in Kenya, is the fall armyworm, the stalk borer. So if you have scientists seated somewhere working overnight to produce for your seed that can be able, instead of probably requiring rainfall, let's say for 3 months, if you have a seed that requires rainfall maybe for only 2 months or maybe for only 1 month, that means a farmer can be able to produce even when there is a very short span of rainfall of about 1 month, as compared to another seed that probably requires rainfall up to about 3-4 months. That is the research we're talking about. If you have a researcher that is coming up with a seed that can withstand the infestation of fall armyworm, that is the seed that we're looking for. That's the seed that the Kenyan farmer is looking for. If there is a seed that can be able to withstand infestation by weeds, that is the seed that the Kenyan farmer is looking for.
Okay.
Many times when we talk about breeding, when we talk about seeds, many farmers would want to imagine that they can use the seed that was handed over to them by their grandparents in 2026. It's not possible. In fact, even seeds themselves, even if you were to imagine that you can leave them in their natural state, they also undergo evolution. The maize that was being planted centuries ago is not the same maize that we plant today. If you planted your maize in a field, another farmer plants in another field, yellow and white maize, at the end of the day, you'll have a mixture of the two because you cannot control it. That's why we say any seed undergoes evolution. Instead of the seed undergoing wild evolution, why can't we direct that evolution so that we can retain the positive characteristics and we can do away with the negative characteristics and the traits in that seed? And that is the work of breeding, that's the work of research, and that's what farmers in this country need to start appreciating. That's what we call agricultural biotechnology.
Okay. And before we go deeper into that, because biotechnology is a sensitive discussion in the country, either from a lack of information point of view, but prior to that, I'm trying to look at this issue of intervention. Right now we have drought. Majority of the people that are affected northeastern Kenya, the Horn totally hit, relying on relief. And it's quite unfortunate. We've been told that Kenya, we have our arable land, traditionally, it's not very huge, but also rain is a huge factor to it. So are there examples of crops that we've seen developed in the past where, because I've seen rain resistance, sort of maize that was developed a while back. Talk to me about some of the interventions that we've seen trying to mitigate this issue of being too heavily reliant on rain-fed agriculture.
But barely when you mentioned that Kenya, probably 20% of the land is what is arable and the rest 8% is not arable. That's already controversial. Arable in terms of what? Because we're basing our argument on rainfall. But the 8% land that we're calling semi-arid, the soils are there, the soils are fertile, every other condition is suitable for crop production other than water. So why can't we produce water? Why can't you use irrigation to produce our food? So this issue of depending on rain-fed agriculture, it's not working for us. And therefore we need to start looking at how do we move in from rain dependency to irrigated agriculture. Number two, how do we look at our environment? How do we tailor-make our environment to ensure that it produces, there is enough vegetation, there are enough trees, there is afforestation, so that at the end of the day, we have got an environment that can be able to give you rainfall. Today, if you drive from here to, say, Kisii, as you live here, you go to Narok, you discover that you have, rainfall is not so much. When you approach Bomet, because of the vegetation, the rainfall starts increasing. When you get to Kisii, it's raining virtually every day. Why? It's because of the environment. And in this environment, there are no natural forests in Kisii. Those trees have been planted by the people that live there. So if we were to wake up and start planting trees, we would have changed this. But then when we talk about rainfall and crop production, we look at a number of things. One, let us start breeding seeds that can produce with limited rainfall. I have explained that. Number two, let us take care of our soils. Soils play a key role. If you have a soil that can be able to retain water longer, then that soil can be able to sustain productivity, crop production, even when the rainfall is not that much. Let us embrace what we call conservation agriculture. We keep on turning our soils. And the moment you turn your soil, you make it more porous. When it rains, that water simply runs off and it leaches down. So what we need to do is to ensure that we don't keep on disturbing our soils. We do minimal disturbance of our soils or no disturbance at all. That's what we call conservation agriculture. We can use herbicides to clear, and then we do planting. When it rains, that water is retained. Even if it's a small amount of rainfall, the water is retained to sustain crop productivity because the land is still firm.
Okay.
And then we need to move out of the traditional crops that we have been planting. Let us go to other crops that can be able, Kenyans think about maize alone, but we can go to other crops that can be able to be grown with less amount of rainfall.
All right, definitely. And that issue of diversification is actually quite critical in our country right now. It holds so much benefits. We want to take a short break right here at the Farm Kenya Show. This discussion touches on drought that kicked in last year with, less precipitation than expected. And we've seen that crossover into the year, close to 3.5 million Kenyans being in need of relief food assistance, which shouldn't be happening. And what are the solutions? That's what we are focusing on. Right now, we take the short break. Still more to come. Keep it KTN.
Sasa nifanye nini? Ilhali sina njia nyingine. Hivi ndivyo tunavyoishi hadi mvua itakavyonyesha. Nimesalia na mnyama huyu mmoja pekee, nami sitakubali afe.
Yes, you see, that is the voice from the ground itself. Actually, the Horn of Africa has endured 4 consecutive failed wet seasons. The latest October-December wet period ranked amongst the driest ever recorded, with Eastern Kenya experiencing its worst drought for that season since 1981. That's how dire this particular issue is. Julius Nyabicho is an agricultural expert, and we're discussing solutions to this particular issue. It's quite unfortunate that one of the biggest challenges that we face as a country is post-harvest losses. But on the other side is that people have no access to food. I mean, this imbalance, how do you assess it as somebody who sat in rooms that are formulating policies in this country, at the same time going to the level of speaking to farmers and producers at the ground level? How do you assess this imbalance in the country?
Back to technology. We'll talk about technology until Kenyan farmers start to understand what we're talking about when it comes to technology in agriculture. Now today, it just started raining. A few days ago, it was extremely hot and it was extremely dry. Today, I'm sure there are parts of this country that are suffering from floods. And a few weeks down the line, those same areas will be suffering from drought, from lack of water. If we employed technology, we would have to harvest this water. So when we have no rainfall, we can be able to make use of the water that we have harvested. That we can only do using water harvesting technologies at farm level. We have not done this because we have not embraced technology. But when it comes to post-harvest losses, in cereals and grains, Kenya loses about 30% of the harvest after harvesting. That's what we call the post-harvest losses. That happens because, one, farmers have not embraced the use of technology in storage. Number two, we do not have ready market. We have got some perishable products, farm produce, that needs to move from the farm to the market. And if it does not do so, then it means that there's got some intervention in terms of storage. It can either be a cold storage, it can be hermetic storage when it comes to grains and pulses, and farmers need to start understanding that anytime there is a loss in terms of poor post-harvest handling, that loss does not just come in terms of quantity, it also comes in terms of quality. It also compromises on food safety. So food security and food safety move hand in hand. Anytime you hear that there is maize that has gone bad, there are high chances of aflatoxin infestation or contamination. There are high chances of this maize having developed mold. and therefore not fit for human consumption. The cost of medication because of food poisoning, because of food safety issues is extremely high. And that's why we say about 30% of liver cancer cases in Africa are caused by aflatoxin contamination. And this is because of poor post-harvest handling of our grains, especially maize, groundnuts, as well as other pulses and grains. So we need to invest appropriately in terms of post-harvest handling. How do we do that? This cannot be left to one player. This has to be a multi-sectoral approach. A farmer can do a very good job to produce. The transporter may do poor transportation. In the course of transportation, the grains can contract aflatoxin because probably the truck is not well covered and therefore the grains have been rained on. The transporter might do a great job, but the person that's doing processing might not have very good storage. The conditions might not be very good, and therefore contamination might take place at storage level. And sometimes it might even move out of this and go to processing. It can go to the shelves. You have a supermarket that is not well done. You've got a shop that is not well done. Until you do the cooking, until the food is on the table, then we cannot say that this food is secure. It has got to be intervention that is along the value chain, from production to processing, transportation, to the way the food is served on the table. Then we say the food has been is now secure and has been consumed. But for us to do that, technology has to come in. For instance, when we talk about maize, when we process maize, nowadays we have the shellers. You just use the shellers, the threshers, so that you can thresh your maize gently, make sure that the drying is properly done, 13% moisture content, make sure the storage is properly done. Now we have hermetic bags for smallholder farmers. The maize can be stored in the hermetic bags without the use of pesticides. After that, you can do the processing, and the farmers can consume safely. So unless we adopt technology and unless we come together, unless the government, you realize that agriculture is now devolved. But the county governments have not done a great job in terms of extension service provision to the smallholder farmers. Unless there is that coordination, unless there is that coming together of the stakeholders to make sure that farmers get the right tools, they get the right equipment, farmers get the right knowledge, then we might not be able to escape this. Remember, we have said it is very expensive to produce, and we have got limiting factors. We've got limitation in terms of rainfall, in terms of water, in terms of fertilizer, in terms of seed, in terms of pesticides and agrochemicals. And finally, when the farmers struggle and produce, and then you lose up to 30-50%, that is not good.
It is not good at all. Technology is the hill that you're dying on, Julius. You say without tech, agriculture will not change in this country. Why is there a level of skepticism around technology generally, especially in agriculture? I mean, we can talk about hard tech, when you talk about irrigation systems, that becomes, it's adoptable. We can discuss costings. Those are issues that are sort of at the periphery. But when it comes to biotech, there is a level of resistance, or is it an information gap that we are facing here? Don't we understand? Is it misinformation, disinformation? What exactly is going on?
Everything. There is information gap, but farmers in this country are among the most resilient, among the most educated farmers. What is happening is that there is a lot of misinformation and a lot of disinformation. Agriculture, anybody that wakes up and feels that is an expert in agriculture will start activism against a certain technology. That's where we have the biggest problem. When we have a problem in the health sector, as I said earlier, doctors, experts in the health sector will get down. They will give you a solution in terms of vaccination. They will give you a solution in terms of medication. When we have a challenge in the food sector, in the agricultural sector, we expect our experts to get down and get us a solution. But there's too much interference from activists who believe that what the experts are giving us is not the right technology, unfounded. If we were to ask ourselves, I've heard the CS for Agriculture recently say we might not be having enough maize in the country, and therefore we might be looking into, if the shortage persists, we might be looking into importing. Where do we import from? We import from countries that have embraced this technology that we are resisting, have produced using this technology, and therefore we are consuming the same. It does not make sense for you to say, I do not want to use this particular technology. But when you are in need of the product of that technology, then you go to the technology user and you get that product. It does not make any sense at all. That lack of information, lack of clarity, that too much space for anybody to come and campaign against a technology that is there to help farmers is not health for us. Let me explain this. If your main challenge, let's say in Makueni, is that you have a very short window of a month of rainfall, and the maize you want to plant takes 5 months, you are very sure that unless you do irrigation, you cannot harvest. But then, if a researcher tells you that I can give you a breed that can produce within 1.5 months, so that within 1 month you have rainfall, the crop can establish itself, and the other half a month the crop can move to maturity. That is what we call biotechnology, giving you a solution to a problem. If you have a problem with fall armyworm in, let's say, Kericho or Bomet, and a breeder, or not a breeder, but a researcher comes and does his work and tells you, I can give you a variety that is not attacked by fall armyworm. You plant the variety, your maize is clean, not attacked by fall armyworm, and you're able to harvest. What is the problem with that? That's what we call technology, and that's how we should be looking at. Technology is there to make your life easy, to simplify your life.
Okay.
Technology is there to make you overcome a certain obstacle, a bottleneck within your production system. And that's why we must always embrace that technology so that we can make our lives easier.
I mean, Julius, the biggest concern and argument, at least what is trickling down to the populace of this country, is the emotive issue of health. That is always one of the biggest discussion. If I tell you, oh, this particular technology will lead to this particular health complication, sometimes a lot of people take a back step. And as you've said, sometimes it's the issue of misinformation or disinformation. How do we make sure that the way we understand our national anthem, that the country gets to understand some of these propositions that are being brought, these technologies, so that everyone has not only an idea but a clear understanding of what this technology is all about and what it means for our food systems?
I think I've sat in forums where we have tried to look at ways of making sure that as many farmers as possible, as many Kenyans as possible get to understand what biotechnology is all about. I think we need to introduce this in schools so that when our children get out of school at secondary level, primary level, they start to understand what biotechnology is. We need to move further and even introduce this even in the legal sector, so that if there is a litigation, if there is a case in court, and a judge has to sit and make a decision, then this judge has got to make a decision based on the knowledge he also has in terms of biotechnology. Let it not be a preserve of a few people to understand biotechnology, and the rest of the population does not understand. A few years ago, we didn't know how to operate a mobile phone. But right now, everyone understands how to operate a smartphone. Let it be as basic as operating a smartphone so that people get to understand, because it's part of life. Nowadays, people understand their health. You know, if I feel like this is what I'm likely to take. People have started to understand that this is health food, this is not health food. Why? It's because they're taking their health very seriously. And that's what we are saying, that let us make it open, let it be a topic of discussion, approach it with an open mind. Don't approach it when you've read opinionated about it, when you've read a formed opinion about it. That is important. And then let us open up and try to see these countries that have adopted biotechnology. What has happened? How far have they moved? Do they have food security? Do they have food safety? How are they moving in terms of economic empowerment? What's their GDP? How does it feel? Which type of countries are we talking about? If we were to import food today, I can tell you, Noah, that we'll import food from a country that's doing better than Kenya economically, because they have embraced biotechnology, and therefore food production is part of what is injecting into their economic empowerment and economic well-being.
Okay. So looking at that, we realize that the tech is there. But also, while people argue against the tech, they offer alternatives, which sometimes also tend to be what we've practiced traditionally. And earlier in this conversation, you mentioned the issue of seed. One of the biggest discussion has always been this issue of autonomy. Do I have the ability to grow my own food without necessarily relinquishing that right to seed autonomy? In the Kenyan context, this was litigated recently. Talk to me about the way, even comparing to different markets, developed markets, the US, the Canadas of this world, the Brazils who are doing very, very big production and exporting maize and cereals. How are they handling this issue of seed autonomy? Because it seems to be a concern right here at home.
Nobody's going to take away your autonomy in terms of seed production. Let me give you an example. If a technology is developed and it has got to be outscaled, it's given to seed companies. Kenya Seed will be given that technology to multiply the seed. Any other seed company in Kenya, operating in Kenya, will have that. Today, most farmers argue that they want to reproduce the seed that they have grown. They want to harvest today, keep part of that harvest as seed, and they use the other harvest as food. But tell me, Noah, can you do that for maize, which is our staple food? It has never happened. Every time you want to plant, you go to a seed stockist and you buy seed and you come and plant. So when some people argue that when biotechnology sets in, you'll not be able to do that, that's what you'll continue doing. Even beans nowadays. You buy your beans today from a seed company, you grow, probably 2-3 cycles down the line, you've got to go back and buy. There is no seed that you can grow forever without having, even hybrid seeds. You grow for this year, next year you'll need to go and buy and grow. So nothing is going to change. When we talk about technology, we are not talking about researchers coming to produce the seed themselves. Researchers do their work. Seed companies multiply the product of research so that they can keep on giving you this seed every year. Of course, at a cost. We buy seed, you don't get it for free. Something else that we must talk about is policy. When it comes to policy, these issues of seed politics, the policy must be very strong and we must be guided by policy. We have got in Kenya is one of the most regulated when it comes to seed production. We have KEFIS, we have the National Biosafety Authority that looks into issues to do with the genetically modified organisms, GMOs. So we have all this that look at in this. Before you get that seed being sold by a stockist, it has gone through a lot of processes. So Kenya is way ahead of the rest of the African countries when it comes to regulation. So we need the same policy through Parliament so that we have a strong policy that can be able to look at biotech, that farmers feel secure. And I think in terms of policy, we are not far. But litigation, too much from uninformed corners. So that's what we need to look at. At the end of the day, what this Kenyan farmer needs is a seed that can be able to withstand drought, a seed that is able to withstand insects, a seed that is able to withstand weeds, and a seed that is able to withstand diseases. Because that's what informs production. Without that, you cannot produce as a farmer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And another level of skepticism that comes, of course, people observe. We are a very observant society. And when you see also the multinationals taking a very keen interest, I mean, as an expert from where you sit, these multinationals are really pushing for the adoption of technology. There is, to some, it might be a little bit skeptical. To others, they might interpret it as a common good, generally speaking. That skepticism, where does it come from?
I think we should look at it the other way around. When you open your borders, when technology flows within the borders, a country has done very expensive research, has come up with a product, with a seed variety. And that seed variety is able to make its way to Kenya. Once that seed variety is in Kenya, it has got to go through the regulatory framework. KFIS is there, NBA is there, all these bodies, KEBS is there, they look at that seed. And then it is given a clean bill of health, it can be grown in Kenya. A seed does not just come to Kenya without going through all these processes and then it is grown. No, a lot goes into this.
Okay.
So instead of saying, even Kenyan companies, ask Kenya Seed. Our seed from Kenya Seed is sold across African countries. It's not just sold in Kenya. I've worked in many other African countries and I see our Kenya Seed, seeds for maize, for beans, everywhere. So it's not a problem.
Okay,
yeah.
Definitely. In closing, going back to this figure, 3.5 million people starving in the country, if at all the country is to adopt technology in totality, adopt better agricultural ways of producing food generally in this nation, will this be a thing of the past, this issue of our fellow brothers and sisters, because it has not trained, they're not able to find food? Will this thing be of the past even before the year ends?
It is not, it's not that fast. It will take a bit of time, but it will go away. One, investment is definitely required. Like when we talk about irrigation, a lot of investment is required in irrigation infrastructure, and that probably would come from the government. When it comes to policy, these policies have to change. When it comes to post-harvest handling, we've got to have the equipment. Education needs to be there. These farmers need to be empowered in terms of this is where you are, this is where you want to be, and this is the route to get you to where you want to be. So a lot of things have got to come in place, and there's got very good coordination. The government in this country, both national government and the county government, have got to play the coordination role they need to play. There are so many players in the agricultural sector, private sector, NGOs, but these players need to be coordinated, because it's the government with the blueprint when it comes to the to agriculture. And therefore we are coming in as a private sector to fit into that and to feed into what the government needs to be done. And therefore they must be there to coordinate us, to make sure that money goes to the right to the right places where that money needs to produce our food. And not just food, we are talking about agriculture. Okay. Even what we produce that is not food is also sold, and we have the money so that we can be able to balance that, what we call the imbalance of trade.
Yes.
We are using so much in importing and nothing we are exporting. So we need to also get a balance in terms of that.
Okay, definitely. Thank you very much. Julius Nyabicha, who is an agricultural expert, and he says that it's time that we embrace technology if you're told we are to solve this issue of drought in the country. But again, let us engage openly. Let us talk. Let us speak our fears, our concerns, and let us talk to each other. But most importantly, let us find a solution and move forward. And the suggestion is that that solution lies in technology. Well, that's been our discussion right here at the Farm Kenya Show. My name is Noah Kipkemboy, and bye-bye for now.
Kuwa mshindi, kuwa na